When nothing starts to influence reality. For most of human history, nothing was treated as a joke, a gap, an empty space between real things that mattered. Kings ruled lands, wars were fought over gold and territory, inventions were praised for what they created, something tangible, something visible. And yet, quietly, invisibly, something far more dangerous and powerful was shaping reality from behind the curtain. Not fire, not steel, not even ideas. It was nothing. The absence, the void, the silence between actions, the space where no one was looking. Humanity believed that reality was built by presence, by force, by material power, but over time, cracks began to appear in that belief. Strange events, unexplained patterns, and uncomfortable truths suggested that what was missing sometimes mattered more than what existed. In ancient civilizations, nothing was feared. Greek philosophers struggled with it. Aristotle famously argued that a true vacuum could not exist, because nature, according to him, abhors a vacuum. To him, nothingness was impossible, an insult to logic itself. Eastern philosophies, however, took a different route. In Taoism and Buddhism, emptiness was not weakness, it was potential. The empty bowl was useful because of the space inside it. The silence between notes made music meaningful. For centuries, these ideas remained philosophical metaphors, beautiful but abstract. No one imagined they would one day collide with hard science, economics, psychology, and even global power structures. Fast forward to the modern world, and suddenly, nothing is no longer philosophical poetry. It becomes measurable. In physics, scientists discover that even the vacuum of space, once thought to be pure nothingness, is alive with energy. Quantum fields fluctuate. Virtual particles appear and vanish. Reality itself seems to be bubbling out of what should be empty. The Casimir effect proves that two metal plates placed extremely close together in a vacuum will move toward each other, not because of something pushing them, but because of nothing behaving differently on either side. The absence of particles becomes a force, a measurable, undeniable influence on the physical world. This is where the story becomes unsettling. If nothing can push metal plates together, what else can it push? Human systems, unlike atoms, are fragile. They rely on assumptions, habits, and invisible agreements. Money works because people believe in it. Laws function because most people obey them without being watched. Social order survives because silence fills the gaps between rules. And in these gaps, nothing quietly begins to shape everything. When a leader says nothing during a crisis, markets panic. When institutions fail to respond, rumors become truth. When facts disappear, narratives take their place. Absence becomes power. Consider history's most defining collapses. The fall of empires was rarely caused by one loud explosion. More often, it was the slow, silent decay, unanswered corruption, ignored warnings, empty promises. The Roman Empire didn't fall in a day, it hollowed out. The center became empty while the structure still stood. From the outside, everything looked real. From the inside, nothing remained. And that nothing spread outward like a disease, influencing decisions, loyalties, and eventually reality itself. In psychology, the human mind reacts more strongly to absence than presence. Rejection hurts more than criticism. Silence hurts more than insults. When someone you trust says nothing, your brain fills the gap with fear. Studies show that uncertainty activates the brain's threat centers more aggressively than known danger. A clear enemy can be fought. Nothingness cannot. And this is where modern reality becomes dangerous. Social media algorithms thrive not only on what you see, but on what you don't. Information gaps create obsession. Missing context creates outrage. A few seconds of silence in a breaking news story can crash stock prices or ignite riots. Even warfare has changed. The most powerful attacks today are often invisible. No bombs, no soldiers, just empty servers, missing data, disrupted signals. A cyber attack doesn't destroy cities, it creates nothing where something used to be. Power grids go silent, banks freeze, communication disappears, and suddenly, reality itself bends. Planes don't fly, hospitals stop functioning, governments panic. Nothing has physically happened, yet everything is affected. This raises a terrifying question. If nothing can influence reality more efficiently than force, then who controls the nothing? Modern power no longer always announces itself. It hides in delays, omissions, blind spots. A report not released, a statistic quietly removed, a voice algorithmically buried. These are not accidents. They are strategic uses of absence. In the information age, what is missing often defines truth more than what is present. Reality becomes editable not by adding lies, but by deleting inconvenient facts. And the human brain, desperate to make sense of the void, does the rest of the work itself. Physics tells us that the universe may have come from nothing. Cosmology suggests that time, space, and matter emerged from a quantum fluctuation, a spontaneous appearance from emptiness. If that is true, then nothing is not the opposite of reality. It is its womb, its source, and perhaps its greatest weapon. Because something can be resisted, challenged, destroyed, nothing slips through defenses unnoticed. By the end of part 1, one thing becomes clear: nothing is no longer harmless. It is active. It influences markets, minds, wars, and even the fabric of the universe. And if humanity continues to ignore it, dismiss it, or misunderstand it, then the most powerful force shaping our future won't be technology, ideology, or weapons. It will be the empty spaces we fail to see. The weaponization of nothing. Once humanity realized that nothing could influence reality, it didn't take long before that discovery was weaponized. Not officially, not openly, but quietly, the way all powerful things evolve. In the modern world, power rarely shouts. It whispers, it pauses, it disappears at exactly the right moment. And that disappearance does more damage than any speech ever could. Silence, omission, and absence are no longer accidents of chaos. They are tools, refined and sharpened by systems that understand human weakness better than humans understand themselves. Media is where this weapon became most visible, and most invisible at the same time. People assume media controls reality by showing things. In truth, it controls reality by not showing things. A protest that isn't covered might as well never have happened. A scandal that fades into silence dies faster than one that is loudly denied. Governments learned this early. Corporations mastered it later. In the information age, deleting a story is more effective than disproving it. Arguing creates memory. Silence creates erasure. And erasure reshapes reality without resistance. This is because the human brain is not built to tolerate gaps. When information is missing, the mind does not wait patiently, it fills the void. Psychologists call this the closure instinct. We are wired to complete incomplete patterns, even if it means inventing answers. This instinct once helped our ancestors survive predators hiding in the bushes. Today, it makes us vulnerable. When leaders stay silent, people imagine conspiracies. When platforms remove context, outrage fills the space. When facts disappear, emotions rush in to replace them. Nothing does not stay empty for long. It attracts meaning like gravity attracts matter. Political power thrives on this. A delayed statement after a crisis can destabilize an entire nation. Markets crash not because of bad news, but because of no news. Investors fear uncertainty more than loss. A clear announcement, even a negative one, gives the illusion of control. Silence suggests chaos. This is why strategic pauses exist. Why responses are under review. Why investigations are ongoing, without updates. The gap itself becomes the message. Nothing says, "We are deciding your reality right now." Social media algorithms exploit this at scale. You are shown fragments, not wholes. A headline without context. A clip without history. A statistic without explanation. What's missing is never random. The absence creates engagement. Confusion creates comments. Anger creates shares. Platforms learned that clarity calms people, but uncertainty keeps them scrolling. And so nothing becomes profitable. The spaces between facts become the most valuable real estate in the digital world. Even identity is now shaped by absence. People define themselves not only by what they believe, but by what they reject, ignore, or never encounter. Echo chambers are built not by adding extreme ideas, but by subtracting opposing ones. Over time, the missing voices begin to feel unreal. If you never see them, they might as well not exist. This is how polarization grows without anyone firing a shot. Reality fractures not because people disagree, but because their realities no longer overlap. History offers chilling parallels. In authoritarian regimes, censorship was once obvious. Books burned, journalists arrested, broadcasts shut down. Today, censorship is subtle. Content is buried, reach is limited, visibility quietly reduced. Nothing dramatic happens, and that's the point. When repression is invisible, resistance loses direction. You cannot fight an enemy you cannot see. And nothing leaves no fingerprints. Warfare, too, has evolved beyond destruction into disappearance. Modern conflicts are won by disabling systems rather than destroying them. A satellite signal vanishes, GPS glitches, communication delays, drones drift off course. Soldiers don't know what's happening, not because the enemy is stronger, but because information is missing. In such wars, confusion kills faster than bullets. The battlefield is not fire and smoke, it is silence. Economics follows the same pattern. Value is increasingly driven by expectations rather than assets. A rumor not denied can wipe billions off a company's worth. A missing earnings forecast can cause panic. When confidence disappears, money follows. Financial crashes often begin not with bad data, but with no data. And once trust is gone, restoring it requires more than facts. It requires filling the void that fear has already occupied. On a personal level, nothing shapes human behavior relentlessly. Ghosting hurts more than rejection. Being ignored feels worse than being criticized. Studies show that social exclusion activates the same brain regions as physical pain. Why? Because nothing threatens belonging. When someone disappears without explanation, the mind spirals. What did I do wrong? What does it mean? The unanswered question becomes louder than any insult. Silence becomes emotional violence, not by intent, but by effect. Even morality bends around nothing. Atrocities often persist not because people support them, but because people do nothing. Silence in the face of injustice is not neutral. It is an action. History remembers not only villains, but bystanders. The absence of resistance allows harm to normalize. Over time, people stop seeing the problem at all. Nothing becomes the atmosphere, invisible, unquestioned, everywhere. This leads to a disturbing realization. Reality is not shaped only by decisions, but by non-decisions. Not only by words spoken, but by words withheld. Not only by actions taken, but by opportunities ignored. And those who understand this do not need to control everything. They only need to control what is missing. By the end of part 2, it becomes undeniable that nothing is no longer passive. It is engineered, deployed, optimized. Silence is scheduled, absence is designed, gaps are curated. And as long as people continue to believe that power only exists where something is visible, they will remain blind to the most influential force operating right in front of them. Or more accurately, right where something should be, but isn't. When nothing becomes the architect of reality. If nothing can influence reality, the final and most dangerous question is unavoidable: can it be controlled? Or worse, is it already controlling us? By the time humanity starts asking this question seriously, the answer is often already in motion. Power rarely waits for permission. And absence, once understood, becomes the easiest power to deploy because it leaves no trace, no signature, no clear enemy to point at. The future is not being shaped only by innovation, artificial intelligence, or geopolitical rivalry. It is being shaped by what disappears. What fades from attention? What is no longer discussed? Entire generations are growing up inside carefully managed gaps, unaware not because they are ignorant, but because they were never shown what was missing. History becomes shorter, context becomes thinner, truth becomes negotiable. When memory erodes, reality becomes flexible. Control through nothing works because it feels natural. There is no obvious oppression, no dramatic censorship, just less visibility, less reach, less discussion. Over time, people stop asking certain questions, not because they are forbidden, but because they feel irrelevant. The most effective control is not forcing people to think something, but gently guiding them to stop thinking about something. When curiosity dies, control becomes permanent. Science itself now confronts the paradox it once dismissed. Dark matter and dark energy, invisible, undetectable directly, make up most of the universe. Everything we can see, touch, and measure is a minority. Reality is dominated by what we cannot observe. The universe is not ruled by stars and galaxies, but by unseen forces shaping their motion. In a strange way, cosmology mirrors human society. What appears solid and obvious is secondary. What is hidden does the real work. This realization forces an uncomfortable mirror onto humanity. If absence can shape stars, markets, minds, and morals, then responsibility does not belong only to those who act, but also to those who remain silent. Doing nothing is no longer neutral. In a world where nothing has power, inaction becomes a choice with consequences. Every ignored warning, every unanswered question, every silent injustice feeds the architecture of a future built on gaps. So how does one resist something that has no shape? The answer is unsettlingly simple and difficult. Awareness, attention, refusal to accept emptiness without asking why it exists. Resistance begins by noticing what is missing. Who is not being heard? Which facts are absent? Which stories vanished overnight? In a world designed to distract, attention becomes rebellion. Curiosity becomes defense. Individually, this means learning to sit with uncertainty without letting fear fill the void. Silence does not always mean truth. Absence does not always mean insignificance. Emotionally, it means refusing to let unanswered gaps define self-worth. Socially, it means questioning narratives that feel complete too quickly. Politically, it means understanding that delayed answers are answers in themselves. Collectively, the challenge is greater. Systems built on engineered absence cannot be dismantled by outrage alone. They require memory, context, persistence, speaking where silence is expected, asking again when no answer comes, filling the void with fact, nuance, and humanity before something darker moves in. Because if people do not fill the gap consciously, it will be filled unconsciously, by fear, manipulation, and control. The most terrifying possibility is not that nothing influences reality, it is that it does so effortlessly. Without resistance, without awareness, without anyone noticing, empires may fall not with explosions, but with distractions. Democracies may erode not through coups, but through indifference. Truth may not be defeated by lies, but by forgetting. In the end, nothing is not the enemy. Blindness is. Nothing is not evil. Unquestioned emptiness is. The void itself is neutral, but what fills it determines the future. Reality does not collapse when something attacks it. It collapses when no one shows up to defend it. And perhaps that is the final lesson hidden inside this paradox. Reality survives not because of what exists, but because of those who refuse to let nothing decide for them. When nothing starts to influence reality, the most powerful act is to notice, and then choose to respond.